Welcome to the Property Nomads Podcast. Today we are looking at inflation and why, as a property investor, you should love inflation rather than view it in a negative way. You've probably seen or read or come across an article in the last few months talking about inflation, talking about how draconian it is and how evil inflation is and how bad it is and, oh my God, we're going to die because prices are going up. I'm here to give you some good news. As a property investor, you should absolutely love inflation. You kind of want inflation to happen anyway, because that will push up the price of your home. Hey ho, we could pretty much stop the episode there. That's why you should love inflation. But I'll go into a few more details of how, as property investors, we can work it to our advantage. But first off, what is inflation? So inflation, in simple terms, in layman's terms, it's a general rise in the price of something over a period of time. So when the general price level rises, each unit of currency will buy fewer goods and services. Let's take, for example, let's take a pint of milk. Let's just say a pint of milk costs £1 at the moment. And you go back to shop in a month's time and that milk is now £1.05. Now that means that inflation has gone up, or the inflation rate, is 5%. This isn't going to be a ridiculously in-depth episode about how inflation is a tax, but inflation is the ultimate tax. It's the ultimate stealth tax, because it will to do with debt levels and basically governments inflating their way out of massive debt. Modern monetary theory, by the way, it doesn't work, so that's going to be a good fun to deal with further on down the line. What I would say is don't bother with the news. Do not bother with all this doom and gloom about, oh, this has gone up and that's gone up and this has gone up and that's gone up and it's the end of the world. That will happen. Now, the reason why that has happened and will happen is currency creation. Now, as a result of COVID, most governments around the world have decided to print. Remember that our fiat currency, as we have the pounds, dollars, etc., none of it's backed by anything anymore. Not since most of the world came off the gold standard in 1971. There are a few exceptions to that. So it's not pegged to anything. In years gone by, there would be a gold standard. Things would be pegged to gold. For the few economies that tried silver pegging, that didn't quite work. But because gold is no longer in the equation, there's always no accountability. And when a pandemic comes along or something comes along that people don't expect, modern monetary theorists will say, well, just print your way out of it, inflate your way out of it. Because, again, inflation will increase the price of something, but then it will erode away the natural debt of said thing. And this is how, as a property person, we should learn to love inflation. Now, do some simple maths here. You buy a house for £100,000 and you have a mortgage. You take a 75% mortgage, interest-only mortgage. You fix it for 5 years or 10 years, whatever it might be. You got a house for £100,000, and then you got a mortgage for £75,000. Now, because of inflation and because prices of things are going up, that pretty much accounts to everything. That will account to the milk that you buy, bread, generic groceries, car parts, cost of going on the tube if you're in London, whatever. Cost of materials, and of course housing. So the cost of, or the price of your housing goes up. So let's go back to your £100,000 house. You've got a £100,000 house, £75,000 mortgage because you're 75% loan to value. You fix it in, and after 5 years, because there's been inflation, let's just say there's been hyperinflation, which many people are predicting that happen in the next few years. Let's just say you come back to refinance it, and magically the house is now worth £200,000. So you've got a house now worth £200,000, but your debt level on it is £75,000. The debt level has not changed because remember, you're on an interest-only mortgage. So when you bought the house, you had £25,000 worth of equity. Great. You've now got £125,000 worth of equity. And you haven't really done anything. All you've done is buy the house. Simples. Happy days. This is how, as an investor, we have to, number one, accept inflation, but number two, love inflation as well, because this is absolute genius. We're not doing anything really behind the scenes to force the house price up. Okay, yeah, I know you can go in and do, you can do a refurb and you can, change the layout and bits and bobs like that. We've covered that in a previous episode. But let's just say you've done nothing to this house and we've gone through a period of hyperinflation, and you've gone to refinance it. Well, yeah, your £25,000 equity has now turned into £125,000 equity because the house value has gone from £100,000 to £200,000, but your debt level is still the same. Your debt level is still £75,000. This is why this is pure genius. This is why, as a property investor, when people talk about investing in the long term, it's only in the very, very long term we can sit back and look at these cycles and go, oh, holy shit, this is absolutely fantastic. The value of my portfolio's doubled. I've not done anything. Oh, and by the way, my debt level's still the same. So you're going to build in a lot of equity into your portfolio over time. And this is also why you shouldn't really keep re-gearing. Let Father Time do the work for you. Let inflation do the work for you. Now, again, date stamping this, recording this in 2021, the next few years, inflation might be exacerbated. And again, reason for that, let's look back at COVID. A pandemic has happened, or a pandemic has occurred. Modern monetary theory will suggest that the best way to get it sorted is, well, number one, print your way out of it. Hence why there's been a lot of new currency and fiat currencies being printed, and that over time will devalue the currency anyway, but that's a different story. But as a result of that, and the knock-on effect of that, of having this currency surplus, is it will increase the prices. It will create inflation. Now, people think they're doing a great job. And again, I appreciate that if you go to your shop and you find that milk's doubled or whatever, yeah, that could be a bit of a pain in the ass. So from a regular consumer point of view, yeah, not great. Of course it isn't. But from a property point of view, absolutely fantastic. We need inflation. We want inflation. Now, it will be exacerbated in the next few years, again, because of COVID, currency printing, modern monetary theory. It's going to push prices up. We could end up with hyperinflation. I think we will. And that'll be quite dangerous for most people, but it will have a positive effect on the price of your home. Happy days. Of course, what comes up must go down. So there will be a big ass crash at some point. Now, I said 2021, chances are that's not going to happen. But there will be at some point down the line. I couldn't tell you when. I think anyone that can tell you exactly when it's going to happen is talking out their ass. It will happen at some point though. So what can you do for now? Well, if you have the ability to lock in a longer fixed term product on your home, again, I'm not an independent financial advisor, so please don't take this as financial advice. Go and speak to your mortgage broker. But with everything I can see coming down the line, I would recommend that you go and fix in your things for the longer term. If you're on a very good variable rate, then chances are you might be okay, depending on what's going on. But again, speak to your broker, don't listen to me. In the long run, debt will become cheaper due to the powers of the currency. So this is why we can grumble about inflation all day long if we want to, but we need to learn to live with it and work it to our advantage. And as a property investor, a property person, we're all about adding value. We're all about creating long-term wealth. And it's about looking at the very, very long-term picture. This is why real estate, this is why property is absolutely fantastic. So that is how you should love inflation as a property investor. If you want to find out more about the intricacies of inflation, about how it really is the ultimate tax, it's the stealthiest tax known to man, I'd recommend a book by Dominic Frisby. At the moment, I can't quite think of the title, but if you just go on Amazon, type in Dominic Frisby or Dom Frisby, that's FRISBY, I think. You'll find it. Go and check it out. Do your own homework on it. But in summary, very simply, property prices are more than likely going to increase because of inflation. The reason we've got inflation and possibly hyperinflation is because we're dealing with the back end or midway through a pandemic. Modern monetary theory means that people believe they can just inflate their way out of issues, which is probably going to lead to a collapse of the currency anyway. Whoopee, happy days. So in order to protect against that, get yourself investing in some property. Do your homework when you're doing that. Let inflation do the work for you. My opinion is to fix in the mortgages for as long as you can. Speak to your broker. And if you're thinking, oh, that sounds a bit too shady, as many people tell you, gold and silver are a good hedge as well. If you're doing that, buy the physical stuff, please. Don't buy ETFs or pieces of paper that say you've got gold or silver. Just buy the physical stuff. That way you've got it, it's there. You'll never know when you need it. Again, this episode is not about gold and silver. We've done episodes in the past about it. Inflation, that is why as a property investor, you should love it. Let the economy do the work for you. Always do your homework, always do your due diligence, and happy investing. Until next time, hasta luego.